Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Pleasure to have you here. I apologise for the backdrop, but we were preparing for an interview, so I moved myself temporarily. Macro thoughts. Well, the big news was that the US Services ISM Index posted its biggest monthly fall since November 2008, just after Lehman. That took the Fed rate hike probability for September below 25% and saw a big sell-off in the dollar. Interestingly, cross-asset volatility has fallen to the year's low as well. And that was obviously a very big move in the markets, which had been sort of seeing the dollar push high on the basis that we were getting a rate hike in September, which I think is not entirely off the cards. Hannah has started reading The Mill on the Floss, and I will let her read it before giving her my thoughts. But I like this quote. Childhood has no forebodings, but then it is soothed by no memories of outlived sorrow. I like this quote of the day from the Chinese philosopher Mencius, the Economist tweeted. This quote from Jory Graham, the barbaric gleams right under the surface of all human skin. William Randolph Hearst, its mansion in Beverly Hills, is seeking $195 million. It was featured in the movie The Godfather. Randolph Hearst, of course, was the subject of the iconic movie Citizen Kane. And he also said, Chiefs is not only stranger than fiction, it is more interesting. President John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline Kennedy also vacation at the home as part of their honeymoon. Trump has taken a 2-point lead over Clinton in a national poll that's coming out of Politico. And, I wrote about this separately and said, in a two-horse race, he's got considerably better chance than people are giving him. Betting markets are still at 30% for Trump, which is interesting. But I think a lot depends on turnout amongst his core voters, and that's what, of course, won the Brexit vote as well. Donald Trump on Hillary Clinton's claim he choked in Mexico. I don't choke, she chokes, he said. Put up a photograph of Hillary Clinton exiting her plane, and then jumped to bozos, goat lovers, and sons of whores, a history of political insults. President Rodrigo Duterte's description of Barack Obama as a son of a whore has caused a spat between the Philippines and the US. But Duterte's discourteous language is not exactly a new low in high-level political discourse. In Shakespeare's Henry IV, Part 1, Falstaff drunkenly calls the young Prince of Wales, the future King of England, a bull's pizzle. Henry hits back, calling his flabby tormentor a whoreson round man, not so very different from Duterte's crude jibe 600 years later. President Mitterrand said of Margaret Thatcher that she had the mouth of Marilyn Monroe, but the eyes of Caligula. Anybody who still believes gross political insults are a modern phenomenon should study the experience of a 19th century American president as related by Jeffrey Stone in the Chicago Tribune. The president was furiously castigated as a liar, a despot, a usurper, a thief, a monster, perjurer, an ignoramus, a swindler, a tyrant, a fiend, a coward, a buffoon, a butcher, a pirate, a devil, a thief in the night, and a betrayer of the nation. The president's reputation has since recovered a little. His name, Abraham Lincoln. Duterte, as the Guardian said, plumbed depths, but not new ones. Interesting piece in the New York Times about Zimbabwe following Robert Mugabe's health by following his plane. It is an indirect clue at best, but it is often all they can get. Many Zimbabweans have taken to divining the state of their increasingly frail 92-year-old leader's health from the movements of his presidential plane. On Saturday morning, anyone with a smartphone could see that the Air Zimbabwe Flight 1, as the plane is known, was hugging Africa's eastern coast on its way home to Harare, the capital, after 4 days in Dubai. The flight designation UM1 meant that President Robert Mugabe, the world's oldest head of state, was on board. And then talking about rumours, Mr. Mugabe had suffered a stroke, unlikely he can come back from this. And this is a sort of repeated situation we've seen happening. His health is an all-consuming topic this year. TK, I was quite close to him, and I kept a close eye, and he is getting very old. Saying, the uncertainty of a post-Mugabe political order is compounding the anxieties. You can say that again. There will never be a thing called a vacuum, so if the officials are not giving information, rumours will fill the vacuum, said Tendai Biti. The feelings of uncertainty are a byproduct of a very unstable environment created by the president himself. But this is not unique to Zimbabwe, added Mr. Biti, who was finance minister from 2009 to 2013. Mobutu used to die so many times. In Uganda, Idi Amin used to die so many times. In China, Chairman Mao used to die so many times. In Russia, how many times did Brezhnev used to die? UM1, of course, took off again after midnight on Saturday. By 6 a.m., the tracking apps had it over the waters between Mozambique and Madagascar, headed southwest. When the plane landed at 7:58, reporters for the state news media were ushered onto the tarmac. Yes, it's true, Mr. Mugabe told them cheerfully. I was dead and I was resurrected, as I always do. At the airport, a reporter asked Mr. Mugabe whether he was a ghost. Once I get back to my country, he replied, I'm real. On the 25th of July this year, I wrote that countries like Zimbabwe feel they are right at the edge, which was described thus by Hunter S. Thompson. There is no honest way to explain it because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. Pepe Escobar, writing about G20, Z's so-called four prescriptions, innovative, invigorated, interconnected and inclusive. Talking about the geopolitics of the official picture, Merkel and Erdogan stood close to Z because Turkey hosted the G20 last year, and in 2017 it's Germany. Perfect symmetry for Putin and Obama, perfect symmetry for two other BRICS members, India's Modi and Brazil's Temer, the usurper at the extremities but still first row, Japan's Abe in the second row, as well as Italy's Renzi and Britain's Theresa May, who were open for business. I'll put up that photograph of the world leaders standing for a group photo during the opening session of the G20. Let's move on to international markets. Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse have scrapped the UK recession calls. The negative impact of the UK vote to leave the EU on growth in the UK and Euro area appears to have been materially less than we expected in late June. That's Credit Suisse. Resumed political stability, a weaker currency, and the Bank of England's policy response look to have stabilised activity after confidence fell sharply in the wake of the vote. That may be sufficient for GDP to avoid a modest contraction. Credit Suisse revised its forecast for UK GDP growth to 1.9% for 2016 and 0.5% for 2017, up from 1% and minus 1%, respectively. And similar story coming out of Morgan Stanley. Though Morgan Stanley says it still expects the EU exit to drive a near-term slowdown and act as a persistent medium-term drag. EU market is crucial for the UK, accounting for half of trade and FDI. It expects high and protracted uncertainty over future trade arrangements and thinks the risks are tilted towards a hard exit. I'm bullish the pound, as I've been for a while. The pound, as I said on the 4th of July, is outside the EU. It might well eventually morph into the Swiss franc. As in, however, at some point the whole world is going to pile in, and for medium to long-term accounts, they're probably looking to scale in already. Sterling, let me put up a 1-year chart, 134.20 last, 140 target. China is eating up a largest chunk of shrinking trade pie. Nation's export share climbed to 14.6%. That's a big jump. Currency markets, well, they moved dramatically yesterday. Euro 112.56 now. Dollar index 94.76. Japanese yen 101.38. We were just at 104 not too long ago. The pound, as I said, 134.21. The Aussie, which has been strong, 0.7678. India rupee 66.735. South Korean won 1091.98. Brazilian real 3.197. Egyptian pound 8.8813. And the rand 13.93. It had a stonking rally. It's still stronger than expected GDP numbers. Have a look at dollar yen. This is a chart from David Inglis. It's a few hours old, but the yen is currently, for your guide, at 101.40. I'll also put up a 1-year chart of the dollar index. Big sell-off yesterday. 93 is still the key area of support. Cash in a box catches on in Switzerland. This is because of the negative interest rates. People prefer to hold their money in cash and insure it. It's a sign the world is getting used to negative interest rates when what once seemed bizarre starts to look like the norm. Consider Switzerland, where more and more companies are taking out insurance policies to protect cash hoards from theft or damage. Commodity markets, gold, well, that's rallied, about $40 since the non-farm payrolls numbers. I'll put up a 6-month chart. We're back heading towards the top of the range, but that's about 1,400. All you need to know about this market is that shares of Amazon are basically tracking the price of silver. This is Joe Wiesenthal looking at correlations. Crude oil, $45.10 last. Let me put up a 5-day chart, which gives you an idea of the extraordinary volatility we've seen over the last few sessions. Saudi Arabia said to away cancelling $20 billion worth of projects, intensifying efforts to shrink the highest budget deficit among the world's biggest 20 economies, aiming to cancel more than $20 billion worth of projects and slash ministry budgets by a quarter. People familiar with the matter said. Taking unprecedented steps to rein in a budget shortfall that ballooned to 16% of GDP last year. There's a video attached to that article on Bloomberg, and in that video the language was much more fruity. The interviewee said Saudi Arabia is like a footballer who has been on a wild bender. I spoke in August 2015 about how the end was nigh for oil and oil producers from Caracas to Luanda, Riyadh to Abuja, who were squealing like pigs, are about to be served up as rashers. I said oil-based economies are going to contract, currencies which have already collapsed are going to be routed, and Greek-style austerity will be the order of the day. The meltdown is coming. Quoted Kapuscinski, and I'm reading The Soccer War again, which is a lovely book. If the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over. I said the revolution is only just beginning. Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman met at his residence with leaders of Japanese financial institutions. Put up that photograph. Russia's 5-year CDS returns to levels before the Crimea flare-up in August 2014, derived by the 5-year default probability, which has dropped to 12.6%. Top country ETFs in 2016, Peru up 71.5%, Brazil up 17.4%, Colombia plus 32.4%, Russia plus 32.2%. Sub-Saharan Africa, African Union says to mediate in Gabon election. It is an urgent matter, and I expect the high-level delegation to be dispatched very soon. Chad's President Idris Deby, who currently holds the AU chair, was likely to lead the talks. The irony is that he too was accused of ballot stuffing. EU observers report an anomaly in the Gabon vote. We've already talked about that. That is the level of participation in this one district of 99-point-something%. And I was listening to the radio this morning. There was a good interview on BBC. And I said the characterization anomaly by the EU in Libreville is a euphemism for ballot stuffing. But what are they going to do next? It would be wise to do a recount, said Prime Minister Valls, the French Prime Minister. So let's see how that develops. But the incumbent tend to have significant advantages in these matters, as we saw with President Lungu, who technically knocked out the issue, technically knocked out the court challenge, got it time barred, as an example. President Salva Kiir is seen here in a closed-door meeting with UN Security Council delegates visiting South Sudan. This is Ambassador Power. FT, interesting article, but this quote got my attention. This is, the downside of the demographic dividend. The biggest problem is jobs, as those who don't have jobs become criminals. South Africa's economy expanded at faster than expected, 3.3% quarter on quarter, and that's after shrinking 1.2% through March. The South African all shares up 5.89% this year. The Rand had its best day for a long series of sessions. Have a look at this from Bloomberg. Dollar Rand, I'll put up a 6-month chart. Big move back below 14, but we just need Zuma to say something, we'll be back above 14. Egyptian EGX 30 is up 17.08% this year. The Nigerian all shares down 3.97% this year. Yields on Ghana's $1 billion notes due August 2023 have dropped 110 basis points, reaching a one-year low of 9.22% on August 25. The cedi has stabilized, inflation steadied since this bailout that the IMF came forth with of $918 million. Currency has declined 1.9% against the dollar this year, compared with a 14% plunge in 2015 and a 26% plunge the year before. The Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is down 10.03% this year. The University of Malawi's Professor Blessings Chinsinga says efforts to root out corruption do not stick because the existing institutional milieu makes it almost impossible. And I visited Malawi not too long ago. Sustained Brent crude prices below $50 a barrel will dampen the prospects for new oil projects in West Africa. Angola, the continent's biggest producer, has the lowest break-even price of $49.60 a barrel, according to Rystad Energy Q. Nigeria needs $81.80 a barrel to make a profit. Angola, as we know, has fired its finance minister after talks with the IMF stalled. Very interesting program I watched about the Maldives. Al Jazeera investigates stealing paradise. Kenya announcing the results. The Kenya Tea Development Authority Managing Director Lerionka Tiampati said this has been the best year in the history of the company. Tea farmers are set for improved earnings after sales for the year 2015-2016 jumped 32% on higher production and a stable currency. KTDA has announced 84 billion shillings in revenue, up from 63.5 billion last year. Growers will earn 44 billion on average as the final payment. Announcing the results, the KTDA Managing Director Lerionka Tiampati said that this has been the best year in the history of the company. It's been a good year for us as KTDA, and we're happy about the results we've posted this year. So, salad days for the tea farmers. I put up a photograph of a tea plantation seen in the Kericho region of Kenya. Kenya shilling 101.29, well behaved, isn't it? Nairobi all share at a 35-month low, down 10.49% year to date, but up 0.59% yesterday. NSE 20 down marginally, minus 0.06% yesterday, and down 21.57% year to date. If you want to check into any share, look at that last link. Every listed share can be interrogated here to check into any details of like results or ratios and so forth. Thank you for stopping by, and apologies for the background.